promised the video that I would do some advanced corrective exercises. So I'm going to bring my Swiss ball out here. If you guys keep going on that, that's fine. Whatever else you want to do, I'm going to train for a little bit longer. Alright.
I have a good question though. Do you prefer squatting with the feet straight or out?
Oh, good question. Because of course I say weird shit and then later on I'm like, oh, science proves.
Yeah.
Recently I saw a really popular article that's been going around, a blog post that's been going around, where I guess it's magnificent finding that everybody's hips are different. And they took like all these skeletons and they showed like, imagine! You mean we're not all exactly the same? The fuck? But anyway, I think what the scientific research that the author pulled from had pictures of different hips, hip widths, and how the bone articulated within the hip. Right,
yeah.
Right. The way that it articulated was different in everyone at the bony level.
Yeah.
And the argument I think the trainer was making is the same one that I've made for years, which is everyone's squat stance is going to be slightly different. And although it might be advantageous for some athletes in particular sports to have, you know, they might have a mechanical disadvantage by having their toes straight, they may also have a genetic predisposition to being able to do that shit.
Okay.
Some of us, the hips, and I just have to come to grips with this, and I realize that my hips are situated in such a way, because I stretch the shit out of my, you know, of course I'm tight and I got like muscle viruses and shit, but I also realize like I am at my most functional. I really feel the bones are sitting much better when my feet are turned out.
Okay.
So it's a long way of saying,
whatever, yeah.
What works best for you?
Yeah.
How's it working for you?
Well, I mean, cause I was just saying, whenever I'm in a squat stance, my feet are slightly out. I'll come down. When I'm in the bottom of my squat, my knees usually will come in a little bit, like here. But whenever I'm straight, I can produce more torque to push out when I'm going down. That's
yeah.
But only problem with that though is like the knee is a hinge. It's not a ball and socket. It's rotate. Like so, like I was thinking, if your feet are straight forward and you come down, you're pushing your knees out. Isn't that putting tension on the kneecap or no?
Yeah. Again, it depends on the biomechanics of the individual.
Well, I was just saying because like mechanically, like a knee is like a hinge, and the hip is like a ball and socket. Because like, you know, it's not like a ball, you know, it's not,
yeah, I know, so it should be hinging nicely, but it's kind of like a twisted.
Yeah, that's why I was just kind of curious, because like bell,
right, it creates, and you use that term torque, but you can even create torque at that, at the knee. See, yeah, if you find that you're creating more dysfunction by doing it one way than the other, then of course make changes. With the toes out slightly and your knees bowing in, may just be showing you that your glute medius, the external rotators of your femur, are weak. Yeah. So just push your knees out more.
Yeah, just working on like pushing it.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're more comfortable in your knees with the wider toed stance, then do that, and then just work on the weakness associated with the external rotation of the femur. You know, experiment, work through those. You know, I think it really boils down to everybody trying to be right and not giving the athlete an opportunity for subjective reality. It's like, hey, is that working for you? And you know, we can document it scientifically, like, you know, he's clearly safer, he has less injuries, and he's performing better like this. Well, that's okay, but don't go and preach that shit like it's gospel and say, oh, and he's got to do it too. Wait a second, why not take someone where they are? Now, of course, there may be dysfunctional movement patterns, there are muscle imbalances, and so on and so forth. So we want to take that into consideration. But we also want to take into consideration that everyone's different. Yeah. So my answers always suck because I'm never going to tell you yes.
Yeah, that's all things. Yeah, it's all individual, towards the individual, you know.
It really matters. I mean, reality is subjective. Well, how's that working for you? Yeah. You know, we hold so tightly onto certain dogma that really is not serving us out of this desire to be right or to give someone else responsibility. This published author said, well, that's great, but what do you say? And how's that working out for you? Well, it doesn't matter because he wrote a book and I'm just 17.
I guess we want to like look to people that are older than us, that have done more stuff than us, and we want to like see what they say instead of testing on ourselves, I guess, maybe.
See what everybody has to say. See what everyone has to say. That's very powerful. But then see what works for you. Shitty answer.
No. Yeah, I understand.
Right? Everybody wants a Bible. Everybody wants them to tell you, this is it. Believe this. Nothing else. Well, sorry, I'm not Jesus. I can't do that. So last week I showed you guys with that gentleman that was here how to work on the upper hamstrings in order to help him support the posterior pelvic tilt. You can ascend that. You can ascend that just like any other exercise. So one that I've been doing also, I've been doing my corrective exercises on my mostly on the days that I'm not bodybuilding, is with a Swiss ball, or you could also do it on a bench, but a Swiss ball adds a component of instability to it that causes your nervous system to be that much more active. You come from here, and you're gonna see how weak I am. I'm gonna try my best. Come from here. What I like to do is I like to kill two birds with one stone, sucking my belly in and tucking my hips under. Right? And last week I showed you how the gentleman was to do this, except on the floor. Really focusing on squeezing the lower part of my glutes and the upper part of my hamstrings. But then also working it this way.
We've been using that one.
Single leg.
It's not nothing like that one.
The X bar.
Yeah.
Those one you kind of keep it there.
Yeah.
So as I'm tucking the butt under, I'm also pulling the belly button in. And normally this is far more effective after about 30 minutes of stretching. I like to do this right after a long bout of hip stretching because I have a tendency to have really tight hip flexors and lumbar erectors. Belly pulls in, the butt tucks under, upper hamstrings are on fire. Also just holding it there in static position, I often find myself doing. I'm gonna stretch my hips a little bit and do another set. So whenever trying to strengthen, isolate and strengthen a particular muscle, always think about the tonic muscle in that, in the coupling. So in other words, you always got muscles that are tonic, chronically tight, and those that are phasic, weak or have amnesia. So for me, or anybody with the Donald Duck posture tendency, the upper hamstrings are weak. This pelvic floor, deep abdominal wall, weak and tonic. Weak and phasic, sorry. But the hip flexors are very tight and taut. So I tend to stretch them in between sets in order to allow more movement and activation to the weaker muscles. So if you do this and you start feeling like your low back, a lot of people will do this and they'll be like, oh, my low back hurts. Well, that means you're doing it wrong. It might not be your fault. It might be that your nervous system recruits those tonic muscles over the phasic ones. So what do? Stretch the low back, right? So if I start doing this, it means I'm using the wrong muscles. I gotta stretch them. And I really focus on using the belly in, tucking the hips under. Me vibrating now.
Like pressing against.
Got it? I'm doing a bunch of pussy exercises over here. Amen. Sometimes it's emasculating, but it's shit that really is challenging. That's the toughest part for tough guys, is doing pussy exercises.
Let on their ego.
You gotta be man enough to do pussy stuff.
Well, actually,